The rain hammered against my rental car as I pulled into the driveway of 47 Maple Ridge Court, Vancouver. 7 years? 7 years since I'd seen this house with my own eyes. The house I'd paid $1, $9 million for. The house I'd bought for my daughter. But as I sat there, wipers slapping against the windshield, something was wrong. The garden I'd paid a landscaper to maintain looked like a jungle. The paint was peeling, and through the front window, I could see someone moving around inside, setting a formal dining table. That someone was my daughter, Rebecca. She was wearing a gray housekeeping uniform. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't right. This wasn't what I'd left her with. Let me back up. My name is Thomas Brennan. I'm 63 years old, and 7 years ago, I made a decision that would haunt me every single day since. My wife Catherine had died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. Rebecca was 28, struggling to process her grief, working as a kindergarten teacher, making barely enough to survive in Vancouver's insane housing market. I'd just accepted a contract position in the Middle East, working security consultation in Kuwait. The money was extraordinary, nearly 4 times what I made in Canada, but it meant long deployments with limited contact. Before I left, I did what I thought was right. I used my savings and took out a mortgage to buy Rebecca this house, put it in her name, set up automatic transfers to cover the mortgage, utilities, and give her a comfortable life. My younger brother, Daniel, had always been close to Rebecca. He promised he'd look after her while I was gone, check in on her, make sure she was okay. "Don't worry, Tommy," he'd said, gripping my shoulder at the airport. "I'll treat her like my own daughter. She's family." I believed him. The contract work was intense. I was in secure facilities with restricted communication. Email once a week if I was lucky. Video calls were nearly impossible. But every month, like clockwork, I sent money. Every email I got from Rebecca seemed fine. Short, but fine. "Everything's good, Dad. House is great. Uncle Daniel visits often. Don't worry about me." I should have worried more. 3 months ago, my contract finally ended. I was coming home. I sent Rebecca an email with my flight details, but it bounced back. I tried calling. Her number was disconnected. Panic set in. I called Daniel. "Oh, hey Tommy," he'd said, voice dripping with false cheer. "Rebecca's fine. She, changed her number. New phone plan. You know how it is. I'll tell her you called." Something in his voice made my skin crawl. The way he said fine was too quick, too dismissive. So I didn't tell him I was coming home. Instead, I booked a flight, rented a car, and drove straight to the house. Now, I was sitting here, watching my daughter set someone else's table. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. Through the window, I could see more now. The living room I'd bought furniture for was completely different. Expensive leather couches, a massive television. None of it was what I'd left her with. I knocked. The door opened. A woman in her late 40s stood there, blonde hair, perfectly styled, wearing yoga pants that probably cost more than Rebecca's monthly teacher salary. She looked at me like I was a stray dog. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Rebecca Brennan," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Who?" The woman's face was blank. "Rebecca. This is her house." The woman laughed. Actually laughed. "I think you have the wrong address, sir. This is the Walker residence. My husband and I have lived here for 5 years. Walker. Daniel's last name." Before I could respond, Rebecca appeared behind the woman, carrying a silver serving tray. Our eyes met. For a split second, I saw recognition flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by something that made my blood run cold. "Ma'am, should I prepare the appetizers now?" Rebecca asked, her voice small, subservient. The woman, who I now realized must be Daniel's wife, waved her hand dismissively. "Yes, yes. And make sure you use the good china this time. Last week you served on the everyday plates. Unacceptable." "Yes, Mrs. Walker." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker." Rebecca disappeared back into the kitchen. She hadn't acknowledged me at all. "Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Walker said, we're hosting a dinner party tonight, and our housekeeper has enough to do without distractions." She closed the door in my face. I stood there, rain soaking through my jacket, staring at that door. My daughter, my Rebecca, living as a servant in the house I'd bought her. Calling my brother's wife, ma'am. Every instinct screamed at me to kick that door down, to drag her out of there, to pound my brother into the ground. But I'd learned something in 7 years of security work in hostile territories. Emotion is the enemy of strategy. Anger makes you sloppy. And if I was going to get my daughter back, if I was going to make this right, I couldn't be sloppy. I got back in my car and drove to a hotel. I needed to think. That night, I lay in the dark and forced myself to piece together what must have happened. Daniel had access to Rebecca after I left. He'd probably started small. A favor here, a suggestion there. Maybe he offered to help manage her finances. Maybe he convinced her to give him power of attorney just in case. Rebecca, grieving her mother, missing her father, would have trusted him. Why wouldn't she? Then the trap would have closed. Forged documents, maybe. Or legitimate documents she'd signed without understanding. However, he'd done it. Daniel had taken the house, put it in his name, and somehow, some way, he'd made my daughter feel like she had nowhere else to go. The why was obvious. That house was worth $1. 9 million 7 years ago. In Vancouver's market, it was probably worth close to $3 million now. That's a hell of a prize. And Daniel had always been jealous. Growing up, I was the one who went into the military, got the discipline, built a career. Daniel bounced from job to job, always with some scheme, some shortcut, some reason why success was just around the corner. Apparently, his shortcut was stealing from his niece. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I planned. The next morning, I went to the public library and started researching. I pulled property records. The house had been transferred from Rebecca's name to Daniel's 4 years ago. The filing date was interesting. Just 3 months after I'd left for Kuwait. The signature on the transfer documents was supposedly Rebecca's. I saved everything to a USB drive. Next, I visited a private investigation firm. I needed information, and I needed it fast. I want surveillance on this address, I told the investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Michelle Torres. I need to know everyone who comes and goes. I need photos, video, if possible. And I need to know what happened to the previous owner. That's going to cost you, Michelle said. I don't care what it costs. Then I did something that felt like swallowing glass. I called Daniel. Tommy. His voice was warm, welcoming. It made me sick. You're back. Why didn't you tell me? When did you land? Yesterday. I lied. Just got into Toronto, dealing with some paperwork. Then I'll head west. Thought I'd check in. How's Rebecca? A pause. Barely a second, but I caught it. She's great, man. Really great. Actually, she's living with Carrie and me now. You know how expensive Vancouver is. We told her she could stay with us until she got on her feet. That's generous of you. Hey, she's family. You want me to put her on the phone? No, that's okay. I'll see her soon enough. I'll call when I'm in Vancouver. I hung up before he could ask more questions. Living with him. That's how he was spinning it. Not that she was their servant, but their gracious charity case. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the role of the oblivious father stuck in Toronto. I called Daniel every few days with updates on my fictional bureaucratic delays. Meanwhile, Michelle's team was documenting everything. The photos they brought back made me want to break things. Rebecca, taking out garbage bags at 6 in the morning. Rebecca, scrubbing the driveway on her hands and knees. Rebecca, grocery shopping with a list, then loading bags into Daniel's BMW while he sat in the driver's seat scrolling his phone. Rebecca, serving dinner to Daniel, his wife Carrie, and their 2 teenage sons while they didn't even look at her. But the worst was the video. Michelle had managed to get audio from the back deck. Daniel and Carrie were having wine, watching the sunset over the garden that Rebecca had spent the afternoon weeding. I still think we should just kick her out, Carrie said. She's depressing, and the boys are starting to ask questions. We can't, Daniel replied. Not yet. If Tommy ever comes back and starts asking around, it's better if she's here. We can spin it as us taking care of her. When's the last time he even called her? Who knows? Probably doesn't even remember she exists. He's probably dead in some desert somewhere. They both laughed. I watched that video 12 times. By the end, my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. I had my investigator dig deeper. Bank records, credit reports, anything she could legally access. The picture that emerged was devastating. After I left, Rebecca had signed documents giving Daniel temporary power of attorney. It was supposed to be for emergencies only. Instead, Daniel had used it to slowly drain her accounts, redirect my money transfers to accounts he controlled, and eventually forge a property transfer. He'd even taken out a $400,000 line of credit against the house, money that he'd used to renovate and buy toys for himself. Rebecca, meanwhile, had nothing. Her teaching job had ended 3 years ago. Daniel had convinced the school board that she was mentally unstable and unreliable, using his power of attorney to access her medical records after her mother's death. She'd been blacklisted. Without income, without savings, without references, she'd had nowhere to go. So she'd stayed, worked for them, became invisible. The rage I felt was like nothing I'd ever experienced. But rage alone wouldn't fix this. I needed leverage, I needed proof, and I needed allies. I called my lawyer from Kuwait, a man named Robert Chen, who specialized in international contract law. I explained the situation. That's elder abuse, fraud, and possibly identity theft, Robert said. But proving your brother forged documents is going to be tricky. Courts move slowly. I'm not interested in slow. Then you need the RCMP involved, Financial Crimes Division, and you need your daughter's testimony. She won't testify. She's terrified. Then we make her safe first. After that, we make your brother wish he'd never been born. Robert connected me with a lawyer in Vancouver, a woman named Sandra Mitchell, who had a reputation for destroying white-collar criminals. Together, we built a strategy. First, we needed Rebecca out of that house. But I couldn't just show up and take her. Daniel would fight, claim I was kidnapping her, maybe even call the police. No, I needed her to come willingly, and for that, I needed to talk to her alone. Michelle helped me figure out the pattern. Every Thursday afternoon, Rebecca walked to the grocery store 3 blocks away. Daniel and Carrie were both at work. The boys were at school. She was alone. The following Thursday, I waited in the parking lot. When Rebecca came out carrying 4 heavy grocery bags, I approached her. Rebecca. She spun around, eyes wide. Up close, I could see how much 7 years had aged her. She was only 35, but she looked 45. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her hair, once thick and shining, was pulled back in a severe bun. She'd lost weight. Too much weight. Dad? Her voice cracked. It's me, sweetheart. You can't be here. She looked around frantically. If Uncle Daniel finds out, what will he do, Rebecca? What will he do that he hasn't already done? Her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. I owe him for letting me stay, for taking care of me when you left. That's your house, Rebecca. I bought it for you. He stole it. No, I signed papers. I gave it to him. Because of the debt? What debt? Mom's medical bills. Her funeral. You were gone, and there were bills, and Uncle Daniel paid them. He said I had to pay him back. The house was the only way. My vision actually blurred with rage. Catherine's medical bills had been covered by insurance. Her funeral, I'd paid for before I left. There was no debt. Daniel had invented it. Listen to me very carefully, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. There was no debt. He lied to you. And I'm going to prove it, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. I don't know what to trust anymore. Trust this. I never stopped sending money. I never stopped trying to call. I never abandoned you. Your uncle stole everything. The house, the money, your life, and I'm going to make him give it back. I pulled out a business card for Sandra Mitchell. This is my lawyer. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call in sick. You're going to walk out of that house with whatever you can carry, and you're going to meet me at this address. We're going to fix this. Together, she stared at the card like it was a bomb. What if you're wrong? What if I really do owe him? Then we pay him, legitimately, with lawyers and documentation. But Rebecca, you've spent 4 years scrubbing floors in your own house. Don't you want to know the truth? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath. When she opened them again, I saw something I hadn't seen in any of Michelle's surveillance photos. Fight. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow morning, I wanted to hug her. I wanted to take her away right then, but I couldn't spook her. Tomorrow, I repeated. I'll be waiting. That night, I sat in my hotel room and allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to feel the weight of what I'd seen. My daughter, broken, exploited, made into a servant by my own brother. Then I locked it away. Emotions later. Strategy now. The next morning, I parked outside Sandra Mitchell's office at 8 By 8:30, I was pacing. By 9, I was convinced Rebecca had changed her mind. Then, at 9:15, I saw her walking down the street. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, carrying a backpack. She looked terrified. Sandra's office was on the third floor of a professional building. I met Rebecca in the lobby. "You came," I said. "I almost didn't." She was shaking. "He's going to be so angry." "Let him be angry. Come on." Sandra Mitchell was exactly what I'd hoped for. A shark in a business suit. She took one look at Rebecca, and her expression softened, but only slightly. "Brennan," she said, shaking Rebecca's hand, "your father has told me about your situation. Before we proceed, I need to ask you some questions. They might be uncomfortable, but I need complete honesty. Can you do that?" Rebecca nodded. For the next 2 hours, Sandra asked questions. About the power of attorney, about the property transfer, about the money, about the living conditions. Rebecca answered haltingly at first, then faster as the weight began to lift. When she described how Daniel had told her she had to work off her debt, Sandra's jaw tightened. When she explained that she'd been sleeping in the laundry room for 2 years because the guest room was now Carrie's yoga studio, Sandra made a note with enough force to nearly tear the paper. "This is elder abuse," Sandra said flatly. "Financial exploitation, coerced labor, and fraud. Your uncle is going to prison." "I don't want him to go to prison," Rebecca said quickly. "I just want my house back." Sandra and I exchanged glances. "We'll see," Sandra said carefully. "First, we need to secure your safety. I'm going to arrange for you to stay in a secured location. Your father will be with you. In the meantime, I'll be filing paperwork. This is going to move fast once it starts." "How fast?" I asked. "If everything is as you've documented, I can have an emergency injunction by Monday. But we need your daughter's testimony, and we need her to be willing to face your brother in court." Rebecca looked at me. "Will you be there?" "Every second," I promised. What I didn't tell her was what else Sandra and I had planned. The legal route would work, eventually, but it would take months, maybe years. And in the meantime, Daniel would hide assets, create more fraudulent documents, drag Rebecca's name through the mud. No, we needed something faster, something that would make Daniel volunteer to give everything back. We needed leverage. Over the weekend, while Rebecca stayed at a secure hotel under Sandra's arrangement, I went to work. Remember those bank records Michelle had pulled? They showed something interesting. Daniel hadn't just stolen from Rebecca. He'd been running a pattern. In the past 7 years, 3 other elderly or vulnerable people in his investment advisory business had transferred property to him. 3. An 82-year-old widow who'd signed over her condo for estate planning purposes. A 6-7-year-old man with early dementia who'd deeded his rental property to Daniel to simplify management. And a 4-year-old woman going through a divorce who'd put her house in Daniel's name temporarily for asset protection. None of them had gotten their properties back. Daniel wasn't just a thief. He was a predator. And predators follow patterns. Sandra filed complaints with the RCMP and the Provincial Securities Commission simultaneously. By Monday morning, Daniel's office received notice that he was under investigation for elder abuse and fraud. But we didn't wait for the investigation. That same morning, I did something risky. I went to the house. Daniel answered the door in a golf shirt and khakis, smile already forming before he recognized me. When he did, the smile froze. "Tommy." "Hello, Daniel. When did you get back?" "I've been trying to reach Rebecca to tell her you called, but she's been in your laundry room?" I kept my voice conversational. "Or is she working off that imaginary debt you invented?" His face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The debt for Mom's medical bills. The ones that were already paid. The debt you used to steal Rebecca's house." "That's... Tommy, you don't understand. Rebecca was in bad shape. I was helping. You were stealing. From your own niece. While her father was overseas, you made her a servant in her own house." She signed the papers willingly. "I have documentation. Forged documentation, which the RCMP and the Securities Commission are currently examining, along with your activities involving Mrs. Chen, Mr. Patterson, and Ms. Kowalski. Tell me, Danny, how many people have you done this to?" He actually staggered back. "You can't prove anything. I have 7 years of bank records showing you redirecting my money transfers. I have video of you and Carrie discussing how to keep Rebecca dependent. I have testimony from Rebecca about the conditions you forced her to live in. And I have 3 other victims who are very interested in talking to prosecutors once they hear they're not alone. You're trying to destroy me." I'm trying to get my daughter's life back. There's a difference. Carrie appeared behind him, eyes hard. You need to leave. We'll call the police. Please do. I'm sure they'd love to hear about the property fraud and human trafficking. Human trafficking? That's insane. She could leave anytime she wanted. Where? I asked softly. Where could she go with no money, no job, and her own family telling her she owed a debt she couldn't pay? You isolated her, exploited her, made her afraid to leave. That's called coerced labor, Carrie. Look it up. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to Daniel. This is from my lawyer. You're being sued for fraud, theft, elder abuse, and unjust enrichment. We're seeking return of the property. 7 years of my redirected money transfers with interest, damages for emotional distress, and full accounting of all assets you purchased with stolen funds. Our evidence package has been filed with both civil and criminal authorities. Daniel's hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. As he read, his face went from white to gray. This is everything, he whispered. You're asking for everything. I'm asking for what you stole, plus consequences. I'll fight this. You'll lose. But here's the interesting part. I leaned against the doorframe, letting my exhaustion show for the first time. I don't actually want to destroy you, Danny. Believe it or not. You're still my brother, even though you're a terrible person. So I'm going to make you an offer. One time, you return the house to Rebecca, today, with a proper deed transfer. You pay back every cent you stole, which our forensic accountants have calculated at $487,000. You sign a confession, and in exchange, Sandra will recommend to the Crown that you receive probation instead of prison time. The other victims? They'll be offered the same deal. Return what you took, make restitution, avoid prison. That's not a deal, Carrie hissed. That's extortion. No, I said calmly. Extortion is inventing a debt and forcing someone to work it off. This is called consequences. You have until 5 p. today to decide. After that, we file everything, and you can explain to a judge why you thought it was okay to make your niece sleep in a laundry room. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Daniel, I've been recording this entire conversation. Just so we're clear. His face turned purple. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played back his voice. She signed the papers willingly. I have documentation. I stopped the recording. 5 p. Choose wisely. I walked back to my car, knowing I'd just gambled everything on Daniel's cowardice. If he called my bluff, if he lawyered up and fought, this could drag on for years. Rebecca might never recover. But I was betting on something I'd learned about bullies in my security work. They're cowards. They only prey on people who can't fight back. When the fighter shows up, they fold. Sandra called me. Daniel's lawyer just contacted me. They want to settle. I closed my eyes. Terms? Full property transfer to Rebecca, return of all funds with interest, signed confession, and he agrees to cooperate with investigations into the other victims. In exchange, we recommend suspended sentence with probation and community service. He'll also be permanently barred from any financial advisory work. Thomas, are you sure? We could push for prison time. I thought about Rebecca, about how she'd flinched when I raised my hand to push hair from her face, about how she'd apologized for taking up space, about the years she'd lost. Prison won't give her those years back, I said. This way, she gets her house, her money, and her life. That's what matters. The paperwork was signed 48 hours later. Daniel looked like he'd aged 10 years. Carrie refused to attend, but I heard she'd already filed for divorce. Their sons, apparently, had learned what their father had done and weren't speaking to him. Karma works fast sometimes. Rebecca stood in the empty living room of her house, the house I'd bought her 7 years ago, and cried, not sad tears, relief tears. It's really mine? She kept asking. I don't owe anyone? It's really yours. Free and clear. Where will I even start? I looked around at the house. Daniel had left it furnished, probably because moving everything would have been too obvious, but it still needed work. Paint. Repairs. A complete emotional exorcism. We start small, I said. First, you sleep in the master bedroom tonight, not the laundry room. Then tomorrow, we change the locks. Then we start building your life back. I don't even know who I am anymore, she admitted. For 4 years, I was just their servant. I forgot I was a person. Then we figure it out together. I'm not going anywhere this time. You promise? I pulled her into a hug, feeling how fragile she'd become. I promise. No more overseas contracts. No more leaving you alone. I'm staying right here in Vancouver. We're going to make up for lost time. That night, I helped Rebecca carry her few belongings up to the master bedroom. She stood in the doorway, staring at the bed like she didn't have permission to enter. It's your room, I reminded her gently. You don't need anyone's permission. She nodded, but I could see her hands shaking. This was going to take time. The physical house was returned, but the damage Daniel had done to her psychologically would take longer to repair. Dad, she said quietly, why did he do it? Why did Uncle Daniel hate me so much? He didn't hate you, sweetheart. He didn't think about you at all. You were just an opportunity, and that's almost worse. Will I ever feel safe again? I promise you will. It just takes time. She climbed into bed, still fully dressed, like she expected someone to burst in and drag her back to the laundry room. I sat in the chair by the window. You don't have to stay, she said. I want to, because I missed 7 years of your life, because I failed you when I left, because you're my daughter, and I should have been here. You didn't know. You couldn't have known. I should have known something was wrong. The short emails, the disconnected phone. I told myself it was fine because I wanted to believe it was fine. That's on me. She was quiet for a long time. The first year you were gone, I was okay. I missed you, but I had the house, and Uncle Daniel would visit, and it felt like family. Then Mom's anniversary came around, and I was sad. And he said he'd found some unpaid medical bills. He showed me paperwork. It looked real. He said he'd cover it, but I'd need to pay him back eventually. I didn't have the money, so I agreed to let him help manage my finances. And that's when it started. Slowly, he started making suggestions about the house. Maybe rent out a room. Maybe he and Aunt Carrie could stay for a while, save me money on utilities. Before I knew it, they'd moved in, and I became less, until I wasn't anything at all. You were never nothing. You were stolen from. There's a difference. I should have fought harder. Rebecca, listen to me. You were grieving, alone, and manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not weakness. That's being human. The fact that you survived, that you're here now, that takes strength. She turned to look at me, tears on her cheeks. I'm so glad you came home. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The next few months were hard. Rebecca started therapy, working through the trauma of what had happened. She had nightmares where she was back in the laundry room, where Daniel was telling her she owed him more, where I had left again and she was alone. But slowly, gradually, she began to heal. She repainted the house, every room a different color than what Daniel had chosen. She planted a garden. She adopted a cat named Freedom who slept on her bed and made her laugh when he knocked things off counters. She even started teaching again, a private school, working with kids who needed extra support. She told me that helping them find their voices helped her find hers. As for Daniel, he kept his end of the bargain. The other 3 victims got their properties back. He pled guilty to fraud and received 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent ban from financial services. He moved to Alberta. I heard he was working at a hardware store. Carrie divorced him and took the kids. Last I heard, she was telling everyone she'd had no idea what Daniel was doing. I didn't believe that for a second, but I had no proof. Sometimes you have to accept that not everyone gets the justice they deserve. A year after I came home, Rebecca and I sat on her front porch, drinking coffee and watching the neighborhood kids play street hockey. I've been thinking, she said, about what I want to do with my life. Yeah? I want to help people like me, people whose families exploit them. I'm thinking about going back to school, maybe social work or law. Is that crazy? That's the least crazy thing I've ever heard. It's just, I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. And if I can use what happened to me to help others, then you turn pain into purpose. That's powerful, Rebecca. She smiled, a real smile. The first truly genuine smile I'd seen from her in 7 years. Thanks, Dad, for coming home, for fighting for me, for not giving up. I'll never give up on you. That's a promise. And I meant it. Every word. People ask me sometimes if I regret taking that contract in Kuwait, if I regret the 7 years I spent away. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that Rebecca suffered. I regret that I wasn't there to protect her. But I can't regret the journey that brought me home, that taught me the difference between providing for someone and being present for them. Money can't buy back time. Houses can't replace people. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't what you buy them, but simply showing up. Daniel took a lot from Rebecca. 7 years, her sense of self, her trust in family. But he couldn't take everything. He couldn't take her resilience. He couldn't take her capacity to heal. And he couldn't take the bond between a father and daughter. Not permanently. We got her life back. It took strategy, patience, and a willingness to fight. But we got it back. And that's worth more than any house, any amount of money. That's worth everything.